Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the captivating world of electron transfer chain. In this video, we explore the intricate process that power life itself. Join us as we explain the secret of ATP synthesis and profound significance of electron transport chain. Let's dive into the captivating world of electron transport chain. Shano, what are you eating?
I missed my breakfast today, so I just grabbed these bunties to keep my brain awake.
Are you aware of potential energy stored in these bunties?
Not precisely, but at least they taste good and I feel instantly energetic.
You know, it is an extent of reduction of nutrient molecules that determines their energy content.
Like, you might be saying that is the extent of the reduction of the nutrient molecules that determines their energy content. Can you explain a bit?
Yeah, let me explain this. Just look at the structure of nutrient. For example, this is fatty acid, this is glucose. Compare the degree of reduction of fatty acids to glucose. One has got more energy.
If it's a reduction potential, then I think the fat has more energy energetic potential.
Yeah, precisely. That's where the energy is stored in our nutrient molecules.
How can we get this energy?
Now we gain this energy by oxidation.
In oxidation, when reducing equivalent from energy-rich molecules are captured by coenzymes. By reducing equivalents to make hydrogen, yes, it can be hydrogen ions, hydride ions, or even electrons we call them gaseous equivalent. Then what was the coenzymes? Niacin can carry hydride ions, while riboflavin can carry unwritten endons. And with laryngeal electrons, these are the special proteins called cytochromes that can carry electrons. Within each cell, the reactions are separated by compartments. Some of the reactions, they are taking place in the cytosol, while others are only possible in the mitochondria or other organelles. We are the reduced coenzymes generated in the cell, in the mitochondria, but not exclusively. For example, the NADH we get from glycolysis is taking place in the cytosol. But some of the reactions that generate NADH and FADH2 are taking place in the mitochondria. What is the fate of these coenzymes and how do we extract energy stored in them? The NADH and FADH2 enter the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, and at the end of the chain, we get energy in the form of ATP. The electron transport chain takes place in mitochondria, but what about the NADH produced in the cytosol? Can it cross the mitochondrial membrane? No, the inner mitochondrial membrane of the mitochondria is not permeable enough. We use shuttle systems in order to transport NADH from the cytosol into the mitochondria. There are two shuttle systems, aspartate malate shuttle and glycerol phosphate shuttle. NADH can use any of these to enter the mitochondria. If we explain how glycerol phosphate shuttle works, it has got two isoforms. Both catalyze the same reaction, that is reversible interconversion of dihydroxy acetone into glycerol phosphate, but the difference in the redox pairs they use. Mitochondrial one use FADH to FAD redox pair, while the cytosolic one was NADH redox pair. So the reducing equivalents are transferred from the NADH, which is outside the mitochondria, into the FADH that is inside the mitochondria. Yes, this shuttle is a bit less efficient because the energy potential of FADH is less than NADH. Can you explain a bit? Yes, NADH will give 2.5 ATP while FADH will give 1.5 ATP in electron transport chain. Can we prevent this loss? Can we transfer the reducing equivalents from the cytosolic NADH to the mitochondrial NADH? Yes, we can prevent this energy loss if we use the aspartate and malate trigger. And the malate aspartate shuttle is a bit complex. It has got two antiphotors, one for the keto acids, malate and for ketopatrate, and one for amino acids, beta, meta, and acetate. There are two enzymes, aminotransferase and malate dehydrogenase. Malate dehydrogenase brother has two isoenzymes. The good part about that is that both of these uses NAD positive and NADH redox pair. The reducing equivalents are transferred from the cytosolic NADH into the mitochondrial NADH without the loss of its energetic potential. Okay, now I understand the reversible conversion of those allylacetane and mannane, both in the cytosol and mitochondria, and aminotransferases help to regenerate the substrate for this shuttle. Yes, you are right. This is why the energy requiring tissues like brain, liver, they use malate aspartate sugar, while the brain muscle fibers will rely on glycerol.
As previously mentioned, now that we have got the reducing equivalents in mitochondria, let's look at their journey through the electron transport chain, which is the heart of the metabolism. Mitochondria maximize the production of ATP by transferring of electron from NADH and FADH2 through different electron carriers. This state-by-state transfer of electron via the electron transport chain, which is also known as a respiratory chain, allows the free energy which was stored in reducing equivalents, or we can say NaDH and FADH2, to be released in small increments when they are partial to each other.
Complex 1, also known as ubiquinone oxidoreductase, is made up of NADH dehydrogenase, flavin mononucleotide, and 8 iron sulfur clusters. The NADH, denoted from glycolysis and citric acid cycle, is oxidized here, transferring 2 electrons to the flavin mononucleotide. Then these electrons are transferred to the iron sulfur clusters, and finally from iron sulfur clusters to the coenzyme Q, which is a mobile electron carrier.
As 2 electron passes from this complex, 4 proton pump from the mitochondrial matrix to the intermembrane space. So now the energy which was stored in the reducing equivalents can be used to create an electrochemical gradient across the inner mitochondrial membrane.
Coenzyme Q, also known as ubiquinone, is made up of quinine and a hydrophobic 10. Its purpose is to act as electron carrier, transferring electrons to the complex 3. Coenzyme Q undergoes partial reduction into semiquinone and is fully reduced into ubiquinol.
You mentioned complex 2. Is it now the next in line?
No, the passage of electrons is either through complex 1, 3 and 4 or 2, 3 and 4. Coenzyme Q collects electrons both from complex 1 and complex 2.
Complex 3, also known as cytochrome C reductase. It is made up of cytochrome B subunits, which contain a 2-iron sulfur cluster, and cytochrome C protein. Cytochrome is a protein which transfers the electron that contains a heme group. The heme group alternate between ferrous and ferric form during the transfer of electron. Because cytochrome C accepts only a single electron at a time, so this process occurs in 2 states. In contrast to the single state complexes, complex 1 and complex 2 pathway, we also release 4 protons into the intermembrane space at the end of the full Q cycle.
But I'm still thinking about complex 2. This, also known as succinate dehydrogenase, accepts 2 electrons from succinate, an intermediate in the citric acid cycle. These 2 electrons are accepted by FAD when succinate is converted into fumarate. FAD passes them to FES cluster, passes these electrons to FES cluster and then to coenzyme Q. However, no protons are translocated across the membrane of succinate dehydrogenase. Therefore, less ATP is produced in this pattern. Now the picture is getting clearer. FADH2 is also coming from the glycerol phosphate shuttle. Yes, and we are getting both NADH and FADH2 from the beta oxidation of fatty acid, which is also going on in the mitochondrial matrix.
Or also known as cytochrome C oxidase, oxidizes the cytochrome C and transfers the electrons to the oxygen, the final electron carrier in the aerobic cellular respiration. The cytochrome proteins A and A3 along with heme and copper groups in the complex 4 transfers the electron to the oxygen molecule, converting them to molecule of water. The free energy released during transfer of electron is used to pump the protons into the intermembrane space, thus contributing to the proton gradient. The free energy released from the oxidation of NADH and FADH2 contributes to the electron gradient as well as pH gradient, which is collectively known as proton-motive force across the inner membrane.
Talking about the passage of electrons, let me tell you one of the reasons why our tissues gradually lose their vitality as we age. Oxygen can accept single electrons to create highly reactive oxygen-free radicals we call reactive oxygen species. This can happen at a negligible rate in the ETC as well, otherwise can damage our tissues. For example, H2O2 can cross the cell membrane and generate hydroxyl radicals through its interaction with other metals, for example iron and copper. RMS can damage membranes by lipid peroxidation, cause protein cross-linking, and formation of aggregates, and even base alteration, single and double DNA strands. Can we do something about it? I don't want to get old. Don't you remember the antioxidant vitamins? You can enrich your diet with vitamin A, C, and E. Also, there are enzymes which can help get rid of IOS, superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, and catalase. We have already got these defense systems in our body. Then why do we still age? Why can't we live forever?
That's the reality of life. You have to accept. Just live in the moment and worry less about the future. That also helps.
One of the disorders related to antioxidant enzymes is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Stephen Hawking had it. SOD is mutated in this disorder.
SOD or school dentistry?
Super outside dismutase.
Now we move to complex 5, which is also known as ATP synthase. This complex uses the energy generated by the proton gradient which have bumped into the intramembrane spaces to phosphorylate ADP to ATP. Now we look into the structure of ATP synthase in detail. So this is a structure of ATP synthase. It has two domains, F0 domain and F1 domain. The protons which have been pumped into the intramembrane space passes through this domain and rotates the C-ring of F0 domain, which causes conformational changes in the beta subunits of F1 domain, which in turn phosphorylates the ADP into ADP. The ATP thus produced exits the mitochondria through the enzyme ATP translocase.
Electron transport and ATP synthesis are tightly coupled processes. Both inhibition of electron transport and dissipation of proton gradient results in decreased synthesis of ATP. Uncouplers cause dissipation of proton gradient, which results in loss of energy as heat, and inhibitors causes the arrest of electron transport. An understanding of the ETC and couplers and inhibitors can help us save lives.
Uncouplers allow protons back into the mitochondria without making any ATP. Uncouplers dissipate electrical gradient or pH gradient or both. Most of them are ionophores. Aspirin is one of the most common examples.
Rare syndrome is a rare but serious condition that causes swelling in the liver or brain. It is most common in children and teenagers recovering from the viral infection such as the flu, chickenpox. It causes confusion, seizures, or loss of consciousness, which may require emergency treatment. Aspirin has been linked with the Rare syndrome, so use caution when giving it to children and teenagers which are recovering from the viral infection, the flu-like symptoms, or chickenpox.
Inhibitors inhibit the ETC at specific site and act for specific complexes. They arrest the ETC and decrease the oxygen consumption. Most of the poisons found in insecticides also act as inhibitors.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Amitril is a barbiturate sedative drug. It blocks the complex 1. Same is true for rotinol, which is an insecticide. Then there come the antibiotics. For example, the doxorubicin that blocks the coenzyme Q, and the antifungals like antimycin that blocks the complex 3. Both cyanide and carbon monoxide block the complex 4, and then there comes the oligomycin that blocks the inhibition complex.
There are also poisons that can block ATP or ATP translocase, such as eptopyloside and bomcricket.
And how can we differentiate inhibitor from an uncoupler?
An uncoupler does not disrupt electron flow or oxygen consumption by the dissipation of the proton gradient. So there is no ATP production, but the TCA cycle still keeps running. This results into a production of large amount of CO2, and that results in respiratory acidosis.
And what happens in case of inhibitor?
Inhibitor disrupts the flow of electrons, so the chain is arrested. Not only there is decreased oxygen consumption and inhibited TCA cycle, but the ATP synthesis is also decreased. That's why most of the inhibitors are lethal.
The circular mitochondrial chromosome encodes some of the proteins that comprise the major complexes of oxidative phosphorylations. It affects highly aerobic tissues such as nerves and muscles, and the disease exhibits maternal inheritance.
One of the hallmarks of the mitochondrial disorder is lactic acidosis. When oxidative phosphorylation is affected, metabolism shifts from aerobic to anaerobic. Under anaerobic conditions, the glycolysis must provide all the energy to the cell. For the effective glycolysis, the pyruvic acid pyruvate is then converted or reduced to lactate, which then accumulates and causes lactic acidosis.
The energy deficit in mitochondrial diseases. There is a massive proliferation of mitochondria in the muscles, which may manifest as ragged red fibers.
Mitochondrial pathology results in progressive neural degeneration, resulting in progressive dementia, ophthalmoplegia, myoclonic epilepsy, optic atrophy, stroke-like symptoms, and ataxia.
Poison can also directly affect the mitochondria. It deprives electron transport chain of sufficient oxygen, decreasing the rate of electron transport chain and ATP production. When ATP level falls, the glycolysis increases. In the absence of oxygen, the anaerobic glycolysis takes place, which leads to lactic acidosis. Fails to meet the demand of highly aerobic tissues like nerve cells and cardiac cells. In myocardial infarction, myocytes swell due to the collapse of cell membrane potential, and cells get leaky. Enzymes are released from the damaged tissues. Liquid acidosis also contributes to protein precipitation and coagulation necrosis.
So with this, we have come to the end of this episode on electron transport chain. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.